Hello and welcome to the Hoopheads podcast. It's Mike Linsing here with my co-host Jason Sonkel tonight. Second round of the NBA playoffs, halfway done. We are halfway to each of our conference finals, and we will see what happens. But we are going to start tonight, I think, with the game that went on between Minnesota and San Antonio, the return of Victor Wembanyama after his flagrant elbow to the neck slash chin
I still don't know
of
what he was
Nasri.
doing there. I still don't understand what he was doing there.
I
I
think it was, yeah, I don't, what's weird about it is that when you watch it in slow motion and you see him look, and he clearly debates or goes through some type of calculation in his mind and just eventually comes to the conclusion that, yeah, whatever I'm going to do here, it's going to be worth whatever punishment that I get. And look, it probably won't swing the series based on the result of tonight's game 5 and San Antonio easily handling Minnesota. But I think there's probably no doubt that it extended the series at least one more game
Yep.
beyond probably what it would have been. I think we were, as you and I both, I think, predicted that it would be a gentleman's sweep and go 4-1. I think it's probably going to go 4-2. Although this Minnesota team is, I think, mentally and physically tougher than maybe a lot of people give them credit for. Obviously, they've been to the Western Conference Finals the last 2 years and have pulled upsets in both of those playoff runs. And so it's not completely out of the question that they could win game
Game
6.
6. Yeah.
I wouldn't be stunned. I wouldn't give them a 2% chance, but I think that they would need a lot better performance out of Anthony Edwards than they got tonight. He was pretty pedestrian, and they're going to need more. Obviously, you're going to need a game like you got from him in game 4 where he's just dynamic and scoring all over the floor and gets some support from some of the role players. And tonight, not that people didn't not that it was a complete no-show because they hung around and were in the game and even got back to it when they were down. I think they were down 93-73 with about 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And they went on that quick 8-0 run to cut it to 12. And party is thinking, ooh, maybe they can come back.
That was part of you was
Second
thinking
from
that.
the
A part of
to
me was not thinking that. That game was over, Mike. That game was toast. That was on ice, buddy. And now what? They end up losing by 30. I don't know what the
final
final.
score 126-97, so they lose by 29. So yeah, it
Was.
wasn't. It didn't end up. I don't think the final score didn't indicate quite what the entire game looked like. But by the same token, I don't feel like really San Antonio was ever in any trouble as you watch that game. It felt like they were in control of it pretty much from the beginning. And like I
It was
said,
kind.
when
It
the
was kind of
game,
like the. It was kind of like the Cavs Raptors game. Was that game 2? I felt like it was. It was close, but I never. I never had any doubts that the Cavs were going to win that game.
yeah,
Yeah, it was very similar to that for sure for me, at least.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I just think if you look ahead in this series, it's hard to imagine San Antonio losing game 6, although Minnesota will be at home and they've been really resilient and able to, I think, play, I don't want to say above their heads, but they just have played really well. But again, Edwards tonight, 6 of 13 from the floor and had 20 and wasn't terrible, but also wasn't great. And obviously, he's not nearly as explosive as he is when he's healthy. He's got the hyperextension on the one knee and the runner's knee on the other one. And so he's kind of running around on two bad wheels. And so I think that he's going to have to be almost superhuman in that next game for them to win because they're kind of, they don't have enough scoring. Randall's been, I would say, in this series at least, he's been pretty average in this series. Tonight he was okay. He had some moments, but
I think he's been terrible.
they need more from him. They need more from him. And
Offensively
Jaden
for
McDaniel,
sure. I mean,
correct.
he's like he's not a Sir Thompson bad, but he's
Oh, he's
pretty
not.
bad on the offensive side of the ball because here's the difference between him and Sir Thompson is Sir Thompson hasn't really had to do that much offensively all season, right? He's not scoring a lot of points, whereas Julius Randle's got to be number two. Like he's got to be number two with especially with DiVincenzo out. Like there's nowhere to hide for him. He's got to play. He's got to play tough on the offensive end, and he's been. I mean, I don't know, pretty terrible. I don't know. I just think he need way more from him than he's giving, and I don't just know if he's capable. And like he has flashes. He had that really good putback in the fourth quarter, part of that 8-0 run, I think. But like they're just not getting enough consistency from him. And the second that Anthony Edwards leaves the floor, even on his two bad wheels, as you called it, like there's just nowhere offensively for them to go. Like, I mean, that Nas Reed three that he hit, like that was a friggin' Mayday three. Like that's not a good shot, Mike. That's just not good basketball movement, ball movement. Like they just don't have anyone. Jaden McDaniels been not great. He threw that towel. That was pretty classic. Like he was frustrated. Um, Mike Conley's been what you kind of expected Mike Conley to be. He's old. I mean, like he's not like this guy was traded twice, came back, and he just lucked into getting back to Minnesota, and they didn't expect him to have to play as many minutes as he's going to play this season or like this series. I just I just think that Julius Randle needs to step up and play, and I just don't know that he's capable to do that, Mike. I just don't.
He's capable. I don't know that he necessarily will. Like his stats, I was
The
looking
lights
at
are
when he was
bright for
playing.
him, Mike. Are the bright
The
lights a little
lights.
bright for him?
Well, look, when you think back to Julius Randle as a New York Knick, right? That was the criticism that Knicks fans had of him was that he really didn't show up in the playoffs and that his performance. He had two. I think he was second team All NBA one year when he was with the Knicks. And just in the playoffs, he just seemed to disappear is maybe even the wrong word, but he almost seemed like disinterested. And I would say that that has not been the case since he's been in Minnesota. I think he's been much more engaged as a player. Even when he's not playing well, I feel like he's at least engaged on both ends of the floor more than he was when he was with the Knicks. But looking at what he's done in the postseason this season, so during the regular season he shot 48%. During the postseason he's shooting 40% from the floor, and for a guy his size, you just can't have him shooting 48% or 40% from
Averaging
the floor.
12.1 points per game, Mike,
And
in the
he's averaging,
playoffs.
and yeah, he's shooting 28% from three. I have him averaging 17 a game in the playoffs, but that's down from 21 in the regular season, is what ESPN is showing me. So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
look,
I'm sorry. I was looking at games. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're
yeah,
right.
but look, Randall has to be better. There's no doubt that if they're going to have any chance, that Randall has to be better and McDaniels has to be better. And yet at the same time, you're talking about like Mike Conley coming in and playing minutes, which clearly if DiVincenzo was healthy, Mike Conley would not be seeing any time at all. I think what you have to look at if you're a Timberwolves fan, and this doesn't probably make you feel any better, but the honest truth is that when DiVincenzo went down with the Achilles, and it looked like Ant was going to be out for the entirety of that series against the Nuggets,
Yeah.
even though they were down, even though they were up 3-1, I think the vast majority of people were saying that Denver, including us, I think, said that Denver was probably going to win that series. And obviously they didn't. And Minnesota came up with a huge performance in game six, took it right to the Nuggets. Jaden McDaniels got to talk his talk about no good defenders on the Nuggets, and had the dunk and all those things in the Jokic charge. And it's Minnesota, I think, is almost playing with house money, even though it doesn't feel like that because they've been to the last two Western Conference finals. And I'm sure that they and their fans would love to see them take the next step and get to the NBA finals. But they just, without DiVincenzo and with Ant being, even if you say he's 85% of Anthony Edwards, he just isn't at the same level athletically that he normally is. I don't know if he can bring it every single game. Now there is an extra day of rest, which I didn't
Yeah.
realize.
Which, hey, hold on a second. So the Cavs series is the only one that was back like that didn't have a 3-day rest. Okay, which listen, I get Detroit and Cleveland. What is the NBA thinking? There's no game on Thursday
Yeah, I don't
because of
understand
this.
that.
This is idiotic. What are they thinking? Like there has to be a logical reason for this because they knew the Lakers thing wasn't going to go. Okay, they knew this. I mean, like this is just idiotic. Like we're just going to be sitting here Thursday without an NBA game. It's not like there's anything like there's no NFL any obviously. I mean, I guess you might have to watch some baseball on Thursday, Mike. You might have to
So
watch the guy with a
no,
stick in his hand that whacks a baseball.
no, I'll pass on
Your
that.
first
All right, let's
place
talk a
Cleveland
little bit about.
Guardians, Mike. Your
There
first
you
place
go.
Cleveland Guardians.
I won't pay attention till September, and even then, my attention will maybe result in checking the standings every couple of days to see where the
Your
Cleveland
attention
teams
starts
are.
in October when playoffs start. Really, let's be
Maybe
honest.
yeah, maybe it starts a week before that to see if the Indians are going to make it or Guardians are going to make it, whatever. Anyway, I still call them the Indians. So thinking about thinking about San Antonio, we've talked a lot about sort of the Minnesota side of it, but with San Antonio, I mean, Wemby is what Wemby is. He's so disruptive defensively, and
He was really
not only
disruptive
guarding,
last game.
he was, but not only guarding the paint, but just the way he closes out on jump shooters, and he just closes off so many angles so fast. And it's been talked about over and over again, just how many guys drive in and then they see him and they don't even attempt a shot. Forget about the fact that he blocks it. He just kind of gets guys to turn around and go the other direction. But I'll tell you what, the two guys, De'Aaron Fox, I would say in this series has been subpar. He hasn't
Dylan,
quite been good enough.
Dylan Harper.
Not,
Dylan Harper, baby,
yeah,
sign me
that's what I'm
up.
saying.
Sign me
Well,
up for that guy.
okay, you're 100% right. The two guys that have impressed me the most in this series, Dylan Harper, number one, and Stephon Castle. I don't know if I'm not saying Harper's one and Castle's two, but those two guys from an athletic standpoint, I mean, the only thing right now that you can nitpick those two guys on is their 3-point shooting. That's the only thing that you could probably knock them on. When you look at what they do defensively, especially Castle, that dude's like a rock. Like you cannot get through him. You cannot go around him. He's got great hands. He's super competitive. I like everything about him. And then Dylan Harper, just offensively, he's already good defensively as a rookie guard. He's light years ahead of where most
That
guys
dunk
are.
he had, Mike. That dunk he had tonight. That was.
The
I
dunk
mean,
was nice. After the what? The crossover behind the back or
yeah.
between the legs behind the back, whatever the combo move was that he threw at half court and then throws down the dunk going down the lane. I think offensively,
He's good. Is he gonna have a better career than his dad? Like does he have a higher ceiling? I think he has a
he
higher
has
ceiling.
well, he right now he has a higher ceiling. His dad had a pretty good career when you consider the start of it, and obviously his dad, the knee injury when he tore his ACL when he went to the Clippers, totally changed the way that Ron Harper was able to play. When the Ron Harper who was at Miami of Ohio and showed up for the Cleveland Cavaliers was super athletic and could get to the
We got
rim.
Danny Ferry for him, Mike. It was pretty good.
That was a bad trade. Let's just leave it there. That was not a good. That was not a good. That was not a good trade. We don't need to revisit that one, but that was not a good trade. If you're going through the highlights of GM Wayne Embry's Hall of Fame career, the Danny Ferry for Ron Harper trade was not a feather in Wayne Embry's cap. Let's put it that way. But Ron Harper as a young player, I mean, I think in his first or second year he averaged like 20 a game. So look, dad was pretty good, and then obviously he had the run with the Bulls and won multiple championships. So I think currently Dylan Harper's ceiling is probably higher just because
He
Harper
got
didn't win
averaged
with Ron
23 a
Harper.
game, Mike. 22.9 points per game. He finished second in Rookie of the Year voting that year.
Yeah, look, he was really, really good and really, really athletic, and I think that knee injury robbed him of kind of the player that he could have been.
Do
But
you
to
know who
his
won the
credit,
Rookie
he
of the Year the
benefits.
year that he lost?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Chuck Person, man.
All right, there you go. The rifleman. Chuck Person had a good career. Chuck Person was not a star, but Chuck Person had a good career. He had some moments. Chuck Person had some moments against the Celtics in the playoffs back in the
Oh,
day.
that's why you like him, because he had moments against the Celtics.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely. Anybody who had moments against the Celtics, I'm a fan of. Look, Dylan Harper's going to be really, really good. If he surpasses his dad's career, I think anybody would sign up for that. I think San Antonio, if you're a fan or in the front office or you're Mitch Johnson, I think you probably feel like Dylan Harper's ceiling is higher than Ron Harper's. But I think if you looked at them in the moment of their career at the same time, I think their ceilings are probably pretty similar. And unfortunately, Ron's career got derailed by that knee injury. But Dylan Harper's going to be really, really good. And you look at San Antonio having Harper, Castle, and Wemby, whatever. Wemby's what, 22 or 23 years old. He's the oldest of the three. Those three guys on a trajectory, and you look at, I think they complement each other really well. The one thing that Harper and Castle don't have is the 3-point shooting. And if Wemby can continue to come around and develop his shot even more than it already is, and obviously Vassell has become a really good shooter. Keldon Johnson is maybe the sixth man of the year, has developed into a really good shooter. Look, San Antonio is really hard to deal with, and they've had some weird things with the Wemby face to the floor concussion in the Portland series that caused him to miss a game, and then this suspension in this game. They probably would have swept Portland without the injury to Wemby in that series. And I'm not saying necessarily that they would have swept Minnesota in this series, but there was probably not much chance for Minnesota to win it anyway. And by Wemby being out in game four, it allowed it allowed Minnesota to steal a game that they probably otherwise wouldn't have been able to get, and it's forcing San Antonio to work a little bit harder probably than they would have liked to. But I would expect that in Minnesota's going to give a great effort, and I think that'll probably be a closer game than it was tonight, which isn't saying much considering it was a 29-point victory. But I think that game will be tight. But I expect San Antonio to win that game and move on in six, and then we're looking at an Oklahoma City San Antonio matchup, which is I think what everybody kind of anticipated probably would happen. There was some people that probably felt that Denver could beat San Antonio to get to Oklahoma City, and I may have been among those people, but the Nuggets clearly didn't handle their end of that deal, and San Antonio and Oklahoma City should be a fun one. My guess is that there'll be some friction in that series. Get the sense that those two teams after the regular season and the way that San Antonio and specifically Wemby kind of talk at Oklahoma City after they won the season series from them, that you'd have to think that the Thunder is going to be ready, and
Yeah.
there's no doubt that the Spurs will be ready for that series. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but I would expect San Antonio to take care of business in game
Do you know?
six.
Do you know what I just realized? Even crazier. So there's no game on Thursday, and then if the games go, if they both play, they both play on Friday. So then there will be no games on Saturday either, Mike. Like
I know.
that's so ridiculously stupid, NBA. Like you've got the market cornered right now. Like what are you doing?
They want people to sit in front of their TV for 6 hours on one night instead
Yeah,
of
but
three
I mean,
hours on two
I
nights. I guess
guess,
that's the
but
theory.
I think that's you know,
I'm with you, man. I'm 100% with you. You're 100% right. It makes zero sense unless there's some TV deal, something that you and I are unaware of that makes it
well,
so
the
that they
game on
can't
Friday is on Prime, by the way,
reasonably play
Mike.
the
Cavs
game
play
on
at
Thursday
7 on
night.
Prime. I hope make sure you have your Prime ready on your phone. Okay, you ready? You ready?
I
Okay.
got it, man. I'm
All
ready.
right.
I got it. I'm good.
I
I'm
guess
good.
I guess at
I'll
this
have it.
point, like
I'll
let's
have
just
it.
since you brought up the Thunder, we can just put a button on that series really quickly. Obviously, the Lakers were outmatched, outgunned. I was last episode. I gave them a victory that never happened. Although they did come close last night. They had a chance. They kind of LeBron kind of fumbled it away there at the end. But old man LeBron. But they just Reeves finally had a good game yesterday. He'd been not very good the first three games. Had a good game yesterday. That Rui would play great. Like he played awesome. Like he was the reason they even had a shot any of the other games, or at least I shouldn't say a shot, but if he hadn't played the way that he played, they would have lost by 25-30 easily. Like it wouldn't have been. Don't want to say close because I think they were down most of the games by 15 at half or whatever. He kept them afloat. Yeah, obviously Luka. I don't know if you saw his press conference today. He's like, I don't know who. Like people were saying that Luka didn't want to come back and all this stuff, and he's like, if I was healthy, I would have played. I was, despite reports of me being close, I was nowhere near ready for playing. Is what he said. Which I mean, when he originally went out, they said that it would be a long shot for him to even get back for the Western Conference Final, let alone this series. So, I think obviously he said something about clickbait articles saying that he was ready to close to be coming back or something, but you know, we will have speculation station about LeBron and all that, but we go into this series knowing the Lakers are completely outmatched, and the Thunder, SGA didn't have like the first three games. He wasn't great. He was good. Williams though, that guy, I don't. Where did that guy come from? Like, where is he from? What's going on with this guy? Like, they just pull another, then just pull another. Or Mitchell. Why did I say why did
Mitchell,
AJ? Why did I say?
AJ Mitchell. You're thinking you could have been saying
Well,
Jalen
yeah,
Williams.
but
Where's he
but
been?
Mitchell.
That's a good
Well,
comment. Where's he been?
yeah, I was remembering that he kind of basically was Jalen Williams. Basically replaced him. He's been replaced. Jalen Williams. This is not good for your stock value, buddy. At Sam Presti stock value, this is not good for you, buddy. You might be in trouble because they just basically reload.
Do you think that there's any chance that the speculation that's been tossed out there that Oklahoma City would throw together Jalen Williams and then
Okay,
a
Giannis.
bunch of the picks that they have laying around? No, to try to get into the top four of the draft to trade with. I'm assuming you're talking about Memphis or Chicago. I don't think Utah or the Wizards would be willing to trade just because they've worked so hard and tanked so hard to try to get into those top spots. But Memphis
Here's
and Chicago,
here's my
if you threw them three or four number one picks and Jalen Williams,
here's a question.
Oklahoma
Here's a
City gets
question.
out of Jalen Williams'
I mean,
contract, brings in a
that's an
cheaper
idea and a
guy.
thought.
Okay.
Does Memphis? I think Memphis wants to unload Ja, right? I don't think they want him. They want to be in the job. They don't want to be in the job business either,
Yeah,
right?
they're
So
not.
if they're unloading Ja, do they really want to give
Ja's
up a
gonna
top
get
pick? Like is Jalen Williams? Is that gonna sell anything?
probably not. I mean, I think that yeah, he's not that kind of selling star. So you're right if you're trying to sell tickets. I think if you're Memphis now, you're obviously dealing with again the Brandon Clark situation, passing away from what appears to be a drug overdose, and condolences to the Grizzlies and Brandon Clark's family. And it's obviously not a good situation, but from a personal standpoint and from a basketball standpoint, hurts Memphis's depth and whatever, which is clearly secondary to a guy losing his life. With the Grizzlies here, I think you look at it and you say, okay, what do they have on the roster that they can build around? And I think you're looking at Cedric Howard, who they drafted last year. You're looking at Zach Eady if he can stay
Mike,
healthy.
I'm gonna be honest
And
with
those
you.
are your two. Those guys right
Cedric
now are your
Howard.
two
I've
firsts.
watched basketball all season. I had no idea who that player is until you just said his name.
Okay. Well, he's good. They drafted. Remember, I believe he started as a Division III player in his college career, and then he got drafted. I think they drafted him like 16, and
I'm gonna
he
believe you,
was really
Mike.
good.
I'm
He had a
gonna
good
believe you.
season, and there you go. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. So I think Cedric Howard and Zach Eady are the two building blocks that Memphis has. I have no idea what the market is for John Morant. My guess is that it's about what the market was for Trey Young, which means you're probably not getting back anything more than some borderline rotation guys for Ja at this point because you're just trying to get off of his contract. Who knows? You might even have to attach something to Ja to get a team to take him at this point. And so you're right in the sense of, does Jalen Williams, as good as he is, and if we think back, I think people have slept on how good he was last year in their playoff run and specifically in the
It's
finals.
Cedric Coward.
He
That's why
was
I didn't know the name.
definitely
It's not
one body of
Howard. It's
shape.
Coward.
Cedric
Oh, I thought you
Howard.
said Cedric
Cedric
Howard, and I was
Howard.
like, "Who's Cedric Howard?" I know Dwight Howard. I know Jet.
Okay. I think it kind of run. It's like Colin
Sorry,
Cowherd,
I
right? It's like
heard
it's all in
Cedric
how
Howard.
you
I'm like, who? What
how
the
you
heck are you talking
enunciate.
about?
How
Yeah,
you
okay.
enunciate.
I got you. I'm sorry.
All right. Okay. So anyway, it's all in how it enunciates. But nonetheless, I think that if you're Memphis, does Jalen Williams again? I think people have forgotten how good he was in the finals last year, but I don't know, especially after you're coming off the Ja experience, where coming into Memphis, as we've said on this pod numerous times, I don't know that there's a guy whose Q rating took a bigger hit than Ja, from where he was close to being the guy that was going to become the face of the league. He was an
Yeah,
exciting player. He's a great teammate. He had his signature shoe, all these things. And then boom, suddenly he just goes from being that to kind of being looked at as a knuckleheaded thug waving guns around. A pretty big drop all the way across the board for Ja. But the beginning of the Ja era was one that there was a lot of excitement, and clearly he's a guy that you could build your franchise around. I don't know that Jalen Williams fits that same bill. And then you look at, in all likelihood, based on where things sit today, Memphis
yeah,
getting the third pick in the draft at that spot, right? Looks like people are speculating that they're going to have their pick between Cam Boozer or Caleb Williams, and or Caleb Wilson, sorry, and I'm butchering some more names, but anyway, one of those two guys. I think Caleb Wilson, clearly, when you look at his athleticism and personality, I think he would be a guy that potentially could be that type of player that could bring people into your building. Cam Boozer might end up being the better or more productive player. I would bet on Caleb Wilson, but I
yeah.
think Cam Boozer is going to be a very good player. I don't know how exciting he's going to be in terms of high flying, but it goes back to, it's kind of an interesting thing when you think about, and we've talked about this briefly on past pods, but you look at the guys who are the stars now, and you just don't have the same level of, with the exception of maybe Ant, the athleticism of the best guys in the league when you compare it to like the Jordan, Kobe, who are like the 1% of 1% athletes and high flyers and dunkers and all this stuff. And then you look at the guys who are at the top of the league now, Jokic, not super athletic. Shea, for all of his gifts, he's definitely not playing above the rim. Luca is not playing above the rim. Wemby, although he's a great and tremendous athlete at 7'6", I don't consider him to be this acrobatic, high flying guy. He
Yeah.
just is already he's already at the rim before he even has to jump. And so I don't. It's interesting just how you build around stars and what a star NBA player looks like. I think it looks different than maybe we all perceive. So I think with Memphis, I don't know if they would make that deal, but I think Oklahoma City has the war chest of draft assets and guys that, look, their roster, it's just ridiculous. Like you said with AJ Mitchell, who was basically a guy that was on a two-way contract, and now he's making like $3 million a year, and he might be he might be their second
Oh,
best player,
Chet's the
depending on how
second.
you feel
Chet's the
about
second best player. Come
Chet.
on now.
No, I
Come
know.
on.
I understand, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
get you get what I'm saying. AJ Mitchell has been really good. He might be their second best offensive player at this point. Chet clearly is a two-way guy. But anyway, I think, look, that series with Oklahoma City, LA was a mismatch right from the get-go. Oklahoma City, we'll see if they get tested in the next round by most likely San Antonio, or potentially if Minnesota can somehow come back and win these last two games, which I would highly doubt. But you look on the other side with the Lakers, and yeah, we'll have plenty of time to speculate about
I'm
what
coming
happens to
home.
LeBron next
Coming
year,
home.
whether he retires. He might. Look, he might. You never know. It's going to depend on, obviously, if he wants to go anywhere else in the league, he's going to have to take probably a pretty tremendous pay cut, I would think, for anybody to want to have him come in at age 42 next year. He's not going to get paid a lot of money, I wouldn't think, if he goes anywhere else. Does he come back to the Lakers? I don't know. But if you look at the Lakers in this series, right, you think of Marcus Smart and Luke Kennard in their first round series against Houston. Those two guys kind of turned into pumpkins and disappeared. Basically, as the series wore on, Redick pretty much stopped playing DeAndre Ayton. Jackson Hayes got the majority of the center minutes in game 4. And the Lakers roster just wasn't good enough to compete with Oklahoma City. Not that there's any shame in that, because I think we're going to find out that probably nobody's roster in the league is prepared to deal with what Oklahoma City throws at you night in and night out, both defensively, where I think they're probably at their best, but offensively, Shea is just such an efficient guy. And I think everything from what he does at the top trickles down to everybody else. And they're just really, really good and really, really deep. And the fact that, again, their second best player from last year, Jalen Williams, was out the majority of the season and has basically missed the entire playoffs. And seemingly at this point, they haven't skipped a beat. It's pretty good. But yet at the same time, I'm not so sure that they've been really tested. Phoenix, not very good. This Lakers team,
They have not
not
been
very
any
good.
challenge at all.
So
They've had no challenge. It's almost like the Cavs one year when they just were sweeping everybody and they sat around their butts and waited and waited and waited. So we'll see what happens with the West. All right, let's transition to the East, Mike. Let's talk about our Cleveland Cavaliers, who looked DOA in the first 2 games. Then game 3, they really looked really good in the first half, like especially the second quarter. Then they almost completely choked it away, and you said, "Let's funny if they lose this game, we're firing Kenny Atkinson after the game." And then the savior of the Cleveland Cavaliers season, the guy we all knew he was, the guy we knew we believed in. Disregard all of our podcasts from the last 7 years. James Harden saves the day, carries the Cavaliers to victory in the fourth quarter with 9 points in the fourth quarter, 7 straight points in these clutch moments. Mr. Clutch, James Harden. And then in game 4, the Cavs start off great. Probably their best start of the playoffs since game 2 of the Toronto series. And then they completely crap the bed in the end of the first quarter, blow the game. Then they come out at halftime. After halftime, Donovan Mitchell just decides to go scorched earth on them, destroys them. Detroit can't score. The defense is swarming. They're playing great. And it looks like we're going to comfortably walk away with a victory. But we decide, Detroit, you can come back in the game, and we're just going to kind of just put these other guys in. And then we're going to put our starters back in for the last minute because we can't even have competent players go out there and eat up a minute or 2 of game time. I don't know where, Mike, I think what you've said to me in text messages and what we've talked about, neither of these teams are very good basketball teams. And what's crazy is they could still make the East, or they could still make the finals, because I know the Knicks have pretty much taken care of business. But do I believe in Karl-Anthony Towns? Do I believe in Jalen Brunson to lead his team through any adversity whatsoever? Do I believe in Bridges' shot? Do I believe in Mike Brown as a head coach? Definitely listing a lot of things here. And we don't really need to get the Knicks yet, but I think that either of these teams, you wouldn't know that by the fact that the Knicks have swept Philly. But I mean, Philly's Philly. They were playing with house money too, Mike. Right? They were playing with complete house money, like Minnesota is kind of at this point. So I think it's so bizarre. Like we were talking beforehand, I said the Cavs win by 13. You said the Cavs win by 17. They were up by 12, and then the whole scrub McGee's came in the game and gave up points and stuff. So, but they should have won that game by if Merrill makes his shots, if Mitchell doesn't score 4 points in the first half and then score third. But I don't know if he does. If he doesn't score only 4 points in the first half, does he go and have 39 in the second half? I don't know. You know, I don't know what to make of. We've talked a lot about this. I don't know what to make of either of these teams. I don't know what to make of the Cavs. Detroit is so inept on offense, Mike. They are. You may as well put you and me out there. Like Asar Thompson, terrible. Duran, like what the Duran? What the heck is he doing? Listen, they're relying on Karis LeVert spinning the wheel and figuring out what player he is today, and Tobias Harris. We found out what we had to do. We had to limit Tobias Harris to under 20 points, and Detroit's not going to win because he only ended with 14. He had 14 in the first half. He didn't score in the second half, right, of the game yesterday.
Right.
Like
Right.
like Karis LeVert kept them in that game.
I don't even know where okay, let's start with the Pistons before we go to the Cavs. And I texted you during the game yesterday that every minute that Asar Thompson is in the game is a complete win for the Cavs because I know he's gotten a couple occasional cuts on the baseline or out of the dunker spot and hit some dunks and some reverse layups. But for the most part, whoever's guarding him, a lot of times Mobley is on him if the two bigs are in the game, and then Mobley just is free to roam. But whoever is guarding him at any given moment is not concerned at all with Asar Thompson. And he hasn't figured out yet how to attack and make the Cavs pay for the way that they're defending him. And so he just is a complete zero on offense for Detroit.
He's been in foul
And
trouble.
honestly, defensively, he's been right. He's been in foul trouble. He hasn't been nearly as good as he was against Orlando and as good as he was throughout the regular season, where lots of people were talking about him as the best perimeter defender in the league. And he just hasn't been that impactful on that end of the floor. Now, he's been good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's had a bad defensive series and guys are just blowing by him. He's not James Harden, but nonetheless, he's not really being disruptive the way that you might think he would have been coming into the series. And he's so bad on offense for Detroit that I don't know how many more minutes you can continue to give him. I won't be surprised if they switch up and try to do something different with their starting lineup because he's such a liability on the offensive end of the floor the way he's playing right now. And then you look at Duran, who during the regular season averaged 20 and 11, and during the
He's had one
postseason
good
he
game,
was below
really.
double digits. Yeah, he had one good. He had game 7 against Orlando, and other than that, he's been kind of a non-factor against the Cavs. The only thing he's done, he had that stretch in game 2 where he had like 3 dunks off of Cade pick and rolls where the Cavs, I'm
Listen,
not sure what they
he
were
got
doing,
he got shown up by Paul
why their
Reed in
defense.
Game 3, and even yesterday, Paul Reed came in the game and just started doing his finger guns. Mike, you saw his finger guns. What did you think of his finger guns? You got an opinion on that?
Yeah, yeah, I like that. I like that when you're down 15. I'm a big fan of the finger guns. Paul Reed. Paul Reed was a favorite of the Detroit Piston Twitter, by the way. When Paul Reed went on his run in Game 3, and people were like, "Why are we playing Duran and Beef Stew?" And I texted you, I'm like, "Beef Stew might not see the floor again with as good as Paul Reed was in Games 3 and 4." But Duran has just it's when you're Detroit and your guy who has clearly been your second best player throughout the entire season. Duran's got a really decent chance probably to be a second team all NBA guy. That's going to I think make him eligible for a supermax contract, which that will be a very very interesting negotiation. I think it probably begins and ends with Duran asking for the max, and if you're the Pistons, you have to just look at it and be like, dude, no, there's no way. We're going to start with a much lower number than whatever his max is because he just has been terrible. Honestly, the Cavs have taken away his rim runs for dunks, and without that, I don't know what he does offensively. He has no jump shot. He has no post moves. Everything he scores off of is either an offensive rebound or a lob, a roll to the rim where he's just catching it and going up with it. So he, again, if you're a Detroit fan, complete disappointment. And like I said, when he's on the floor, I look at that as a huge plus. Anytime I see Ausar Thompson or Duran on the floor, and better yet, see them both on the floor,
Isn't it? That's how
that
you
to
get.
me is
That's
a
how you
huge
get what. That's how you
advantage
get what happened at the
for the
beginning of the
Cavs. Yeah,
game and in the beginning of the third quarter, where they're them doubling Cade every single time he goes off that screen. They're doubling him. They're showing because they're not worried about anyone else. Like
sure. Yeah, yep, yeah. Blitzing Cade off the doubles, and again, I know they're not doing it all the time, and obviously you have to mix and match. But I thought that, as you said, being able to blitz him at the beginning of quarters where you have Duran and Asar Thompson on the floor, where you don't have to worry about the ball going ping, 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 and then finding somebody for a three. At worst, maybe you get a layup. Let's put it this way: if I'm Kenny Atkinson and the Cavs, I am willing to bet that I can win the Pistons 4-on-3 much better than I can live with Cade going one-on-one against Dean Wade or Strus or whoever's going to be on him. I like the odds much better with the other four Pistons having the ball in their hands, trying to make things happen. And look, LeVert was incredible in the first half of game 4. And we saw him do that in Cleveland. I remember it specifically, again, you'll laugh at this one, against the Celtics, where I think LeVert ended up with 39 or 42 or something, just incredible, and hit all the same crazy shots that he hit against the Cavs in the first half yesterday. And I'm willing to live with that as long
41
as it's not
points,
Cade and I can get the ball out
41
of Cade's
points against
hands
the
and make
Boston
those other
Celtics
guys.
in an overtime game, matching Donovan Mitchell also having 41 points in the same game.
See, I have no recollection of Mitchell's 41 in that game. I just remember Karis
And
LeVert
that
going
was the first
crazy
time
in that one.
the
But
Cavs
anyway,
had two players with
Detroit,
40 points since. Yeah, that's right.
assuming
Good job.
Kyrie and LeBron, but
Yeah,
since game 6, is that game
they
6
both
in the
had 41
finals?
in that game
Yeah,
too, Mike.
okay.
They both had
So
41 in that game, so it was
Detroit
like a little symmetry there. There you go.
Detroit just can't score. They're offensively, I don't know where they go. Tobias Harris, like you said, has been good in this series. He's been good all postseason. Previous postseasons, he's been considered to be a liability, and now against the Cavs and Magic, he's been a huge asset. So I
Yeah,
think he could turn into a pumpkin at any point, which is kind of what he did in game 2 or in game
Mike.
4 in
There's
the
one more
second
thing we haven't
half.
talked about at all.
The only guy,
JB Bickerstaff.
what's that? Yeah, JB Bickerstaff. Look, all you have to do is watch his sideline demeanor. And I've been saying it this is not a criticism because he's on the other side. When he was on our side, I felt the exact same way that he spends on the sideline 90% of his time complaining to the officials, making faces and staring at the officials, shaking his head because of
My
something the
favorite was his
officials
post
did.
game comments about
And
the whistles. And so someone I saw someone subtweeted him
yeah,
after game 1 or after the Orlando game saying, "Oh, if people are upset by how physical he played, maybe they should start flailing. Maybe they'll start getting some calls."
yeah. You can't have it both ways. And look, I wasn't a big fan of JB's coaching style when he was here, and I continue to not be a fan of his coaching style when he's in Detroit. And look, I don't think Kenny Atkinson has been
I,
great in this postseason, but I do think some of the things that he's done, he's had some good stuff coming out of timeouts. I feel like lately
Not
over
in
the
game
last couple
2 in the out
games,
of ATO with
specifically here in
Mobley
Cleveland.
3. That
And
wasn't a good play, Mike.
I didn't like that one, but I think he's gotten better. And I do think that not that blitzing Cade is some stroke of genius that nobody else could have come up with, but I do think that trying to make other Pistons beat you and getting the ball out of Cade's hands as much as you can, I think is good. And not only were we able to get it out of his hands, but late in the game, he had a
Well,
bunch of
in the beginning of
turnovers
the
as
game
well,
too. Remember the
just
beginning of the game,
trying
he
to
was
throw
turning
it
the
through
ball
double
over,
teams. And
and he had turn.
yeah,
Cade has been terrible the last 2
so
games. I know. I don't know if you listened to the mismatch at all, but
he was not good.
Vernon was saying he's been terrible. Was that Vernon who said he was terrible? And then Jacoby said, "Oh, he's not been that bad." And Vernon's like, "What are you talking about? He's been so bad. He has been so bad." But I also think it's the increased defensive. I think it's the increased defensive pressure on him. They're just not giving him any
Agree.
space at all.
Yeah,
And
I
those
agree.
two nudniks that can't do anything on offense are
The
definitely not
Pistons are in
helping.
the Pistons are in the same position that everybody said they were in all year, right? Where they don't have enough shooting, they don't have enough secondary playmaking, and in the regular season you can get away with that because you just compete harder than everybody else and you're more physical and whatever. In the playoffs, when teams dial in and try to figure out what you can and can't do, what your strengths and weaknesses are, they're going to try to force the ball to guys that you don't want to have the ball. And that's what the Cavs have been able to do relatively successfully. Again, I think with the Pistons, as long as the ball is not in Cade Cunningham's hands, and as long as Duncan Robinson is not getting to stand and
He's on the
just
injury
shoot wide
report,
open
Mike.
threes, I'm pretty much
So him, Robinson, Levert,
really
and Herter are on the injury report. They're all listed as questionable for tomorrow.
all right, well, there you go. Listen, I'm willing to live with anybody else for the Pistons with the ball in their hands besides Cade. I'm willing to live with whatever the consequences are of anybody else because I just don't feel like consistently those other guys are going to be able to do it as well as he can. So I hope they continue to mix in some blitzes and some doubles and bring those doubles from different places and do it in different ways and have the timing and put the rotations behind that double team, make those a little bit different and have them come from different places because I do feel like getting the ball out of his hands is the best strategy. So that's the Pistons side of it. On the Cavs side of it, let's start with Harden. Obviously, game 3, that stretch at the end where he scored 7 points in a row to kind of ice the game. Huge, huge performance in those moments for James Harden. Again, no one would have ever thought, specifically me, that he was going to come through in that spot. And yet at the same time, watching him in the first 2 games and even the third game, the just moronic turnovers of bad passes or dribbling the ball into traffic and then bouncing it off your foot. And then you look at the other side of the ball and just the defense. And he did have a couple of moments defensively, right? We talked about the closeout on Duncan Robinson on the final play in
Yeah, yeah.
what was that, game 3, where he had the big closeout that kind of sealed the deal on the possession that Detroit had to try to keep the game alive for them. And Harden kind of switched out as they were rotating and ended up closing out to Duncan Robinson getting a hand up. But there's so many times during the game where he just is staring off into space and he has no idea where his guy is. He's ball watching and the guy cuts right behind him for a layup, or he's out on the perimeter and somebody just completely blows by him. The difference for Harden with this Cavs team versus all the teams that he has played on in the past is this team does not need James Harden to score 30 in a game. Now, they needed him the other day, or they needed somebody in game 3 to have that little run and score the baskets that ultimately push the Cavs over the top. But if James Harden doesn't score 30, this Cavs team should still be able to win games. And what they need him to do, which is kind of what he did in game 4, is take care of the ball and not turn it over. Get the team moving into an offense and not just dribble, 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 dribble. Because I feel like anytime they're in dribble, 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 dribble mode, good things don't happen. The good things happen for the Cavs when somebody, specifically Harden or Mitchell, gets downhill, draws a double team, kicks it out. Either that guy has a 3, or now you got a team in rotation and the ball pings around the perimeter. And eventually you either get a 3 that's open, or you get a closeout that you get to attack and you're attacking into space because of that ball movement. And so that's what they need Harden to do. And if he can do that, then we're getting as much as we could possibly ask for. On the other hand, watching him at the defensive end of the floor, like I said, is just, it's so painful. It's so painful. He looks like a guy who is at a second grade basketball practice and he's just being introduced to the concept of help side and ball you man and see both and use your peripheral vision. The guy loves to just stand there and either look at the ceiling or look at the ball, or I'm not sure exactly what he's looking at. But nonetheless, in games 3 and 4, game 3 comes through at the end. Game 4, he was really good at the beginning. I think he had 11 of the first, whatever, when they were up 16-7. I think he had 11 of those points. And then kind of, I don't want to say disappeared, but just faded into the background for the
He did have
second and
11
third
assists, though,
quarters.
Mike. He
And
did have
then
11 assists.
in the fourth, Well, look, I like the way he played. I think his game four performance, as much as what Donovan Mitchell did, the performance that we got from James Harden in game four, if you get that performance two more times, or if necessary, three more times in this series, I think the Cavs probably win. And then the ultimate bottom line is, look, I still think that what he brings, he takes more, for me, he takes more off the table than he puts on, just because on the one end, he's so close to a zero on the defensive end of the floor that he has to be otherworldly on offense to make up for that. And don't get me wrong, he's good on the offensive end of the floor when he's not turning the ball over. I can live with missed shots. I can't live with the I'm dribbling the ball up and I bounce it off my knee right to the other team and they go down and get a layup. That's the kind of stuff I can't live with. And so we'll see what Harden version we get. History would tell you that you're probably not going to get a great version. One thing I will say is I don't think he's been. Have you thought he's been timid? I haven't thought he's been timid about taking shots at all. It feels like when the ball gets kicked
He's
out to him and he's
he's
supposed to
I
shoot,
will like
he shoots it
I only
regardless of.
felt like I felt like in game 2 is the only game this series that he's forced some shots that he shouldn't take. I feel like, he missed a few threes after he made all the shots at the beginning of the game this past game, but he didn't hesitate at all, and he's not acting afraid, which historically has been his bad sign, right? Like, and I will say this, like, I sent this text to you after game 3, and you refused to reply to it. But my statement was, if Darius Garland is in place of James Harden, I don't know if we win either of those games, Mike. I just don't. I just don't feel like I'm not. And once again, I am not saying that James Harden is the next big thing or the best player since sliced bread or whatever. I'm just saying I think if we were taking the wins above replacement, which is a more of a, I just feel like there's no chance that the Cavs. I'm saying it. He would have gotten hurt. I mean, you saw Harden this last game. You saw Harden this last
Okay,
game
well,
get
yeah,
absolutely annihilated early in the game, and landed on his wrist, flew into the stanchion. He got up, and he was shaking it off a little bit. But like, did he say I need to come out of the game? Did he say I'm going to sit now for 20 minutes and not play basketball? No, he didn't. He continued to play. And you can give him all the nonsense about his turnovers, but he's going to show up and he's going to play. Like he's going to give it all. And like you said, he's not been timid at all. So I give him props.
best ability is availability, and Harden definitely has been available. There's no question about that. Now, yeah, we could speculate that Garland would have gotten hurt, and maybe the guy will never be healthy. But I think if you I think if you substituted the two of them, and again, you had a healthy Darius Garland, I don't think there's much difference between the performance of where the Cavs would be now with Garland and where they are with Harden, at least to this point. Now, again, that's taking into account that Darius Garland is going to be healthy. Yeah, look, I think however you slice this trade, the bottom line is something that we talked about over and over and over again for the last 3 or 4 years, probably since that Knicks series 3 years ago. The tiny backcourt, and obviously Donovan Mitchell is not a tiny guy. He's obviously very put together and compact and strong and everything that goes along with being a great athlete. But the fact of the matter is he's 6'1" or 6'2", and Garland is probably, in all honesty, 5'11" or 6 foot. And in today's NBA, I don't think you can have two 6'2" and under guards who are both going to play 35 minutes a night, if not more, in a playoff series. It's just too much of a defensive liability. And even though Harden is terrible off the ball, he does have moments where the size that he has prevents him from getting posted up
At least he
by
provides some kind of
guards and
resistance when those kind of
forwards,
situations
more
happen.
centers.
Is it perfect? No, but he's
Correct.
at least
Correct.
attempting.
But I,
He's at least attempting
no,
to
it's
provide some kind of
correct.
resistance in those one-on-one situations.
Yeah, it's unwatchable. it's unwatchable to have him to look at the TV and see him just standing there ball watching and have the guy cut behind him, or have a guy that he's squared up on the wing and the guy just takes one dribble right by him and Harden just is giving the bullfighter Olay as he goes by. And then you combine that with all the turnovers that he's had in the playoffs up until the last game or two, and it's served to be an infuriating experience to watch
We're halfway to that
Harden.
Harden jersey,
And
Mike.
yet
We're
I do
halfway to that
appreciate
Harden jersey, baby.
we're halfway. I do appreciate the brilliance of Harden's passing. And I know that a lot of his turnovers came from just him dribbling the ball off his foot or making some really, really, really dumb passes. But his vision and ability to deliver the ball is, I mean, I always knew it was there. We talked about this before, but it's been better. His passing's been better than advertised in terms of his vision and his ability to find people. Now he just has to make sure he's not turning that ball over when he gets into the lane and that he's getting a shot off. And so I think Harden, you can't ask for. I had expectations of Harden that were down below my basement floor. And I would say to this point, he's probably exceeded those. He's probably in the basement right now. But hopefully he can keep it going. And again, we need him to be steady. We don't need him to be spectacular. He just needs to be steady. Donovan Mitchell, look, 39 points and a half. Obviously, only Sleepy Floyd of the Golden State Warriors has ever matched that total and a half in an NBA playoff game. So it's hard to nitpick what Donovan did or has done. And yet at the same time, when he catches the ball again on the wing and he's got Duncan Robinson on him, or he's got Dennis Jenkins or whoever, and he just insists upon dancing between his legs and stepping back and stepping forward and then finally shooting a jump shot. I liked it much better, not just for him, but for the Cavs as a whole. And you mentioned it earlier that if you can just put the ball on the floor and get to the rim or get in a gap and draw a help defender, and now you got a kick, and then all of a sudden the ball is flying around. And that's when the Cavs are at their best. That's when they can find shooters who maybe can't generate their own shots very easily, but they can generate standstill jumpers when the ball is moving. And so I think that that's a factor for the Cavs and for Harden and Mitchell that they got to keep the ball. They got to keep the ball moving in order for it to be successful. And with Donovan, there's so many times where he catches the ball against what I would consider to be a subpar defender. He catches it against LeVert. He catches it against Duncan Robinson. And he wants to go between his legs and step back and do this move and do that move, where it feels like if I was giving you advice, I'd be like, dude, catch the ball on the wing. Duncan Robinson's closing out on you. Just go right by him. You don't even need a between the legs or a behind the back. Like just put it in your right hand and get to the rim and then deal with whoever's coming over as the help in terms of you being able to finish. But I just sometimes Mitchell plays around with the ball too much for my taste. And yet again, he was fantastic yesterday and got them started and got the Cavalanche going when they're did they eventually score?
It was
I think they ended up
24. They
20 was it
originally had 25,
23?
but then they took a point off of Mitchell's toe on the line, so it was 24.
Okay. All right. Okay, because they had the 2 points that the Cavs scored at the end of the half, I think, to cut it to 56-52, and then the 23-0 run to start the third quarter. So Mitchell just has to be aggressive going to the basket. And in my mind, he has to be less about between the legs, between the legs, between the legs, step back, and more about let me just put this ball in my right hand and try to get to the rim. And when you do that, you get Detroit in foul trouble, you get easier shots. To me, it makes a lot of sense. So we shall see what those two guards, if they can perform the way they did in games 3 and 4, the Cavs should win the series. If you get, and you don't have to have Mitchell with 39 and a half, but you've got to get an aggressive, playing well Donovan Mitchell. And with Harden, you just need a guy who is going to continue to shoot when he's open and takes care of the ball and gives that much more of a care on defense to be in the right position and to use his vision to be able to see where he ought to be. So I'll be curious to see what the guards do. I think Mobley and Allen, I don't know about your take on this, but I feel like they've kind of stepped up in these last two games in terms of their physicality on both ends of the floor. Like they've both been going in and they've got the ball on a drive and they're banging bodies to try to get there. That doesn't mean they're always banging guys out of the way. They're not, but at least you can see them
Yeah.
putting their body into some of the Piston defenders, and that's been good to see. And then Mobley was all over the place defensively in Game 4, blocking shots and doing what he does and on that end of the floor and switching out on Cade and being able to move his feet and stay in front of people. So that to me has been an encouraging sign for the Cavs. I think, look, we can boil it down to a million different matchups, X's and O's, this and that. I think the bottom line is the Cavs have too much offensive talent for this series to be as much of a struggle as it is. And I know the Pistons defense is good, but the Cavs have enough offensive firepower that they should be able to overcome whatever defense Detroit can throw at them, especially since the Pistons are so inept on the offensive end of the floor. I mean, it's hard to, I've said this, I feel like I'm coming back to the same point, not just with the Cavs, but over and over again. What's the path? Already we've got the weird path, which we'll talk about with the Knicks in a second, but the Knicks benefit from Embiid coming back again. I'm sorry, the Knicks just are, they benefit from getting the Hawks in round one and then the Hawks kind of imploding and then the Sixers going down with Embiid and him. We, I picked Sixers in 6, thinking that maybe Embiid had 10 days in him, and he didn't have 10 days. He had like 3 days of
I'm
being
pretty
good.
sure didn't I say the
So
Knicks in
and you're
5?
like, this
I said
dude
the
came
Knicks in
back and
5, right?
was no. I think you had Knicks in 6 too. I think maybe you had 5. Maybe you had 5. You definitely had the Knicks. You definitely had the Knicks. I had the Sixers. So I was completely wrong there. But look, the Cavs have more talent than the Pistons,
So
especially on the
what's your pick,
offensive
Mike?
side of the
What's your
ball.
pick?
In my estimation, I don't know. I would feel
I'm
really
going Cavs in
well.
6. I think it's over. I think they're going to do it. They're going to do it. They're going to win tomorrow, and then they're going to come back to Cleveland. They're going to get the job done.
I told you before the game when we both picked, when you picked 13 and I picked 17, I added a caveat to my tweet, not a caveat of my pick, but just saying that I felt like if they were going to win this series, that they needed to win big to kind of send a message like, hey, we've kind of figured out what you guys are doing and we've got control of this thing. Even though the first half was dicey, the second half Cavalanche was, I think, right along the lines of what I was thinking slash hoping would happen. I think it comes down to which of those games do you think the Cavs are more likely to win? Game 5 in Detroit or game 7 in Detroit? Game 7 with the just Cavs general history, toughness, the Harden mystique in game 7s. I'm not sure how good I would feel about game 7. I would much rather get game 5 and then try to win the series in game 6 with the game 7 in Detroit as a very, 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 very terrible backup plan in case you were to lose game 6. But I think you're right. I think the Cavs have figured a few things out, which may be all that they need to figure out in order to be able to knock off the Pistons. So I'll go with you. I'll say
Okay,
Cavs in
and
6.
we'll put a real quick button on the Knicks Sixers series. The Knicks just dominated the Sixers. I mean, what else are we going to say? We've dominated them so much that Daryl Morey's out, Nick Nurse is in, uh, and I mean, the Knicks are just sitting around watching the two Eastern Conference teams that are competing to place them beat each other up, play more games, So, and I think like if the Cavs series and Cavs Knicks or Cavs Pistons series ends in 6, I think game 1 of the Western Conference final or the Eastern Conference Finals will be on Sunday. So it's not like the Cavs are going to get a either way. Either way these shake out, there's going to be no extra rest. Now, some people might say that's a good thing. Some people might say it's a bad thing, because if you sit for a week, I mean, the Knicks are basically going to be out. They're going to be sitting for 5-6 days. That might not be good. You're not, but at the same time, it's rest for these guys, and You know, yeah. So I think the bottom line was this: the Sixers were just outgunned, and they ran out of juice, and that's really what it was. I mean, there was just
Yeah. There's two to me, I think there's two things that you look at. The Knicks 3-point shooting, right? They were 25 for 44, I think, in game 4 against Philly. For the entirety of the playoffs, the Knicks have been just shooting the lights out. They're as a team, they're shooting almost 52% from the floor. They're above 40% from 3 on 32 attempts. They're making 13 threes a game. Look, the Knicks obviously have capable 3-point shooters, but if you're going to go 25 for 44 from 3, you're not going to lose very many games. So to me, I look at it and say, is that sustainable? And if it's not, which I don't think it is, maybe it is in a short sample size, but I find it hard to believe that in the next series that the Knicks collectively as a group are going to shoot plus 40% from 3. I just don't buy that. So when that goes back to normal statistics, which let me see what they shot. Let me see what they shot in the regular season real quick while I'm talking here. The Knicks in the regular season this year, so they're 40% in the playoffs. Yes, they're not bad. They're only 37%, but the difference between 37 and 40 is pretty significant on a game to game basis. Another extra 3 or 2 adds another 3 or 4 points to your total, and that can make all the difference. But I think the shooting one of the Knicks has been a huge difference. And then I think the other piece of it, when you look at New York and what they've been able to do and what they did there against Philly, is you just ran into a Philadelphia 76ers team that caught lightning in a bottle for 3 games in the Boston series with Embiid, and then all of a sudden he's just can't move. He's a shell of himself. And part of that was the way the Knicks attacked him, but part of it is just again he can't stay healthy. And I don't know if you're Philly, how do we ever think that? I mean, I thought maybe he could stay healthy for one series and somehow beat the Knicks, and he really couldn't even stay healthy for a game
you
or
were
two
keeping the hope alive,
in
Mike, that
in this
for
series,
something that was never going to happen.
and then we were keeping the hope alive. I was keeping the hope alive that maybe Philly would knock off the Knicks, and then the Cavs would benefit from this same phenomenon that the Knicks just benefited from, which is Embiid might look good in a game, and then all of
Yeah,
a sudden he doesn't play for the next 20 games, or he plays and he's very, very ineffective. And so, look, it'll be interesting to see what the Anunoby hamstring strain does. That keep him out longer? Does this ability for the Knicks to rest and not have to play him, does that get him back to where he's ready for game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals? Or is this one of those hamstring injuries that's going to linger for a long time? Remains to be seen. But I think if you're the Knicks, you have to feel pretty good about where you're at after coming back from down 2-1 to Atlanta and then basically crushing the Hawks into the ground in those last 3 games. And then, with the exception of, what was it, game 3, I guess, where, no, game 2, where the Sixers were close to, I think it was 108, 102, where it was a close game in that one. Otherwise, the Knicks pretty much controlled that entire series. And look, I don't think they're going to shoot this well against whether they play Detroit or the Cavs in the next round. I think the shooting is, I think it's a little bit of an anomaly, and they'll come back to center, so to speak. But we'll see if OG Anunoby, what his status is, because he's an important part of what they do. And if they don't have him, especially in these next 2 rounds, if they were to make it and win the East and then get to the finals, whether it's against the Cavs or the Pistons or whoever comes out of the West, I don't think that the Knicks can. I don't think the Knicks can advance against any of those teams without Anunoby, because he's just been so good on both
I
ends of
agree.
the
I
floor.
agree, Mike. All right. Anything else you want to say, Mike, for the good of the order?
Anything about the lottery?
The Wizards, baby. Trade for Anthony Davis, and you're going to win the lottery.
In a way, I feel like the lottery, in all honesty, played out in, I don't want to say a fair way, but Washington and Utah have tanked so egregiously that
Although
kind of felt like one
Indiana
of those
not having a
teams really
pick
haven't
now is
moved up
hilarious.
their benefit. Indiana not having a pick was huge for the Cavs, right? That's a huge plus for the Cavs and the rest of the Eastern Conference because if they would have added a top 4 pick and have Halliburton coming back plus Zubac, look, I think if Halliburton comes back to being the level of Halliburton that he was when we last saw him, then Indiana is going to creep right back up
Yeah.
the Eastern Conference power rankings. But if you had Halliburton plus Zubac plus any one of those top 4 guys that could have potentially been added to your team, I think any one of those 4 honestly would have been a great fit with the Pacers. I think they would have been happy with any one of those 4 guys. You can see a role for each one of them. Obviously, their positions and roles would be different, but I can see how they fit with Indiana. And so, yeah, I think that was probably the funniest slash most ironic moment of the lottery in the fact that they dropped the 5 and then that pick goes to the Clippers, who ironically the Clippers pick is sitting with Oklahoma City, and clearly everyone in the league was rooting that that pick did not jump up into the top 4 so that Oklahoma City has to remain at 12. But it looked like for a while that the Clippers start the season 6-21. It looks like an abject disaster that maybe Oklahoma City is going to end up with one of the top 4 or 5 odds because the Clippers are so bad. Somehow they right the ship. Then Harden wants out. Then they trade Zubats for Darius Garland. We have the whole what's the name? What's the name of it? I always want to call it assumption. What's the name of the aspiration? Sorry. We have the
Which
whole
stuff? Nothing's
aspirations
still been said
scandal with
about that. Are they waiting till
Kawhi,
summertime,
and
or are they
then
just gonna?
nothing's been said about it. I don't know, but on November 1st, it looked like the Clippers could potentially be giving up a top 5 pick to Oklahoma City. It looked like they were going to have no draft pick. And now it turns out that the pick they gave to Oklahoma City only turns out to be number 12. Not that you can't get a really good player at number 12 because you obviously can. They give 12 the they give 12 to Oklahoma City, and then they end up with the 5th pick by virtue of this deal with the Pacers. So I think things turned out about as well as the Clippers could have hoped. And then I know there's been talk that would the Clippers be a team potentially that might want to trade, package that number 5 pick and something for
Best player
trying to get
drafted at number
into
12,
the Giannis sweepstakes or
Tyrese
sweep. Yep.
Halliburton. In NBA history, he's one of the. Here's the notable
There you go.
players drafted at number 12: Tyrese Halliburton, Jalen Williams,
Okay.
Steven Adams, Thaddeus Young, Cedric Maxwell, Jack Sikma, and Mookie.
Cornbread. Yep.
And Mookie.
Illinois Wesleyan
Here you go.
and Mookie Blaylock. Mookie Blaylock, Oklahoma. There you go. It's a pretty good list. Put together a pretty good team with those guys. But yeah, that was the most I think interesting part of the lottery. I think Brooklyn falling down. I had no problem with Brooklyn falling down. Sacramento, you feel bad for whichever one of those guards ends up getting drafted by
One of
Sacramento.
my
It's probably
favorite
not going to go
players
well, unfortunately.
in NBA Live 2003 was a number 12 pick for the Seattle Supersonics. In 2001,
Who's that?
Vladimir Radmanovich.
There you go. I remember. I
That's
remember
the first. That's
Vlad.
a Vladimir
I
Radmanovich's
remember
first
Vlad.
uh, appearance on the Hoopheads podcast. Congratulations, Vlad.
Probably is his first appearance, and we don't often don't talk Seattle SuperSonics either. Every once in a while, but so yeah, the lottery was fun. It was interesting. It always is. It will be. I think it's going to be very interesting to see who drafts who. It seems like at least initially, the way people think it's going to go is DeMonsta to the Wizards, Darren Peterson to the Jazz, and then Memphis will have their pick of Caleb Wilson or Boozer, and then whichever one doesn't go to Memphis, presumably will go to Chicago. But I still think that when I look at Caleb Wilson and his athletic gifts from size and wingspan and just leaping ability and what that guy can do just as an athlete, I mean, I'm going to have a hard time if I'm a team passing him up. And I've heard different draft guys talk a little bit about how there's going to be teams, depending on who's drafting where, that teams have different guys at number one on their board. Not everybody's sold that it's, hey, definitely this guy, or hey, Wilson's definitely number four, or hey, Boozer's definitely number two, or
Yeah.
we're all scared of Peterson, so he's number four. I think that all that's pretty fluid, and it'll be interesting to see if it plays out kind of in a chalk way, or is there some wild card that's thrown in where all of a sudden it's draft day and the Wizards are taking Darren Peterson or they're taking Boozer because they feel like
I saw
that
someone
guy's
tweet
the
Darren
best
Peterson.
player.
Darren
I
Peterson.
guess
They
again,
tweeted a
views
video of
wise,
Darren Peterson just making all these threes in the corner and said, "Darren Peterson is going to get some NBA GM fired."
could be he could be that guy. You never know. Based on what we saw, some of the weird behavior, and then he came out with the creatine that it was giving him cramps and whatever. There's definitely some weird stuff with Darren Peterson. Let's put it that way. And obviously, drafting and scouting is an inexact science, and any one of those four guys could get drafted, be in the wrong situation, either because of the coach, the development process, the team around them, the locker room. There's lots of different things that can impact the way a young player in the NBA develops. But ultimately, scouting's an inexact science, and probably one of those four guys is probably going to be a future first team All NBA guy. And there's probably one of them that's going to have a 10-year career that's going to be pretty pedestrian. And obviously, nobody knows which one's which, and every team has their philosophy about do you like the higher floor, lower ceiling guy? Do you like the lower ceiling or higher ceiling, lower floor guy? There's all different ways to look at this thing, and it will definitely be interesting come June what happens. And who knows? You don't wouldn't think it would happen in a historic draft like this where there's consensus that some of these guys are maybe multiple guys are going to be franchise players where you wouldn't think that would be something that any of these teams in the top four would want to trade out of. But I guess it depends on who the player is and how fast you want to kickstart whatever it is the rebuild mode that you're in if you're one of those teams. So we shall see come June when the actual draft takes place, and we'll see where all four of those top four guys end up going. So it's been a fun playoff run so far. It's been infuriating and maddening as a Cavs fan at times, watching this team struggle to do some of the most basic things that you need a basketball team to do, like take care of the ball and not just completely fall apart on the defensive end of the floor and not be able to win a road game. And there's just there's a multitude of things that we could complain about, and yet they're one of what, six teams still left standing in the playoffs. We got at the minimum two more games. I don't think we're going to play the minimum number of games that we could. I think this series is not going to end with Pistons in six. I can't imagine. And so hopefully Cavs get it done, and then you get to go and match up against the invincible New York Knicks. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. We shall see
Yep.
what happens
Sounds good.
in that series. Cavs in six, and I'm gonna say Spurs in six
I
as well.
concur with
So
both of those assessments.
all right, well there we go. So we're in agreement, which means we'll both probably be wrong. Hopefully not. If I'm gonna be wrong, let me be wrong on the San Antonio Minnesota series and give me my Cavs victory in six. So all right, we will leave it there. Thanks for checking out tonight's NBA episode here on the Hoopheads Pod, and we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks.